So glad to be here with you, and hopefully I can occupy just a few more minutes of your time. But as I thought about this occasion, it occurred to me that Dr. King had really some prolific events that happened during the month of September. That any time that I have an opportunity to speak about Dr. King, I like to find something, regardless of the month or the year, something that has been very prominent to Dr. King. So I started looking through Google. That's what we all do, right? Chat GPT, AI, whatever it is. So I want to just highlight some of the things that Dr. King did in the month of September. In September the 17th, 1958, he published his very first book, Strides Toward Freedom, The Montgomery Story. Then he went on in 1958, in September of 1958, he also survived this first assassination attempt while he was signing his first book. Further down in September 1962, he gave a speech up in New York City honoring the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. But the one event in 1963 that in September that really grabbed me was in 1963, September, where he gave the eulogy for the martyred children of the funeral of 3 of the 4 girls that were killed in the Birmingham church bombing. That's Dr. King. But I just have to say, Centel, now that I understand that Dr. King had a very prolific life, even in the month of September, I just have to say that really without Centel and the impact that he's had on me, having worked with me on several of my campaigns, I probably wouldn't be here today. Because the last election I had for this state Senate seat, he was the person who ran the campaign for me. And having met your mother, I can see where you get your inspiration from. But the question is, Senator Jones, why are you so passionate about the life and legacy of Dr. King? And I'm glad somebody in here is looking at me, asking me that question. Well, that's good, I tell you. I would tell you the reason why is because I'm a child that was birthed in the civil rights movement. I grew up in the inner cities of Atlanta, having attended multiple marches with my parents up and down Ashby and Bankhead Street. Somebody in here should know where they are, by the way. Thank you. But I was a little bitty thing at that time, I would tell you. But the only thing I did know is afterwards we had lots of food and lots of drinks that we had. But what I learned during that time is that as a kid marching and protesting with my parents up and down Bankhead Highway, all I knew then was that I was being prepared for a moment such as this. You see, my life in reality has been shaped by those shared experiences I had in these nonviolent, civil, disobedient marches back in the 1960s. So I always viewed Dr. King really as, and not just Dr. King, but Ambassador Young and Congressman John Lewis and Dr. Joseph Lowry and Rita Samuel. Some of y'all know some of these names that I mentioned, and others in the civil rights movement as my heroes and sheroes, all of which I had the opportunity, other than Dr. King, to work with during my 21 years of service to the great state of Georgia, all of which I served in the state Senate. Centel and Ms. Beckham has already mentioned that I chaired the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. And I would tell you that it was during that time that I chaired the Black Caucus that I had an opportunity to do some things in our great state that help enshrine the history of those 33 legislators that were expelled in 1862 from the state General Assembly simply because of their color. You see, Georgia's history as the birthplace of the civil rights movement is an enduring history. And I will go back and let me just remind you of something that I feel is significant for this moment. Though I got elected back in 2024, it really wasn't until 2011 that I had an opportunity to do something of really significance other than the legislation I passed for the civil rights movement here in Georgia. You see, it was during this time, and some may remember, as we were getting ready to go back into session in January 2011, when we had this snowstorm that blanketed the state of Georgia, particularly the Atlanta metro area. And I remember this because we were at the Wild Hog Supper on that Sunday before, and while we were there at that Wild Hog Supper, some of you may know what that means, by the way, and the elected officials, I'm sure you've attended. But that's when we all gather on a Sunday, getting ready to start session that following Monday. And I was at this Wild Hog Supper, and I remember seeing the snow coming down, and I'm wondering, that stuff is beginning to stick out there. And it never, ever stopped. As a matter of fact, it got so heavy that I had to find, and those I did, as well as other members of the General Assembly, had to find alternative housing. We couldn't make it back home. We had to be there at the state capitol on the first day. It was also Governor Deal's. He had just been elected for his first term as governor, and he knew he had to be there as well. And we kind of struggled to get to the Capitol, but we made it there thanks to the State Patrol and a lot of big plows and things. But prior to that, myself and Senator Lester Jackson from Savannah, Georgia, we had to come up with an idea. And this idea was to create an M.L. King Advisory Council for the state of Georgia. Prior to that, if you remember, the governor before Governor Deal was another governor, let's just say that he wasn't that well liked. And he proceeded to change the celebration, the state celebration for Dr. King. And what he did is brought in some of his Republican friends and Republican buddies who really didn't have a good understanding of the civil rights movement. You see, they never lived the movement like we did. But during that first week of session, I had already prepared legislation, and I figured now's a good time to go down and talk to Governor Deal about creating the M.L. King Advisory Council. Myself and Senator Jackson made our trip down to the governor's office after having called and requested permission to see the governor. And y'all may not know Governor Deal that well, but long before he was a Republican governor, he was a Democratic legislator. So he quickly welcomed up in his office, and I put this idea in front of him of creating this M.L. King Advisory Council. And the governor looked up at me and he said, "Senator, that's a great idea. I just got here and I got a couple of weeks to plan the celebration for Dr. King for the great state of Georgia." As soon as he said that, trust me, Senator Jackson and I made our way, hightailed it out of his office. You see, Governor Deal, I went back to my colleagues over in the Senate, those of us in the Democratic Party. We knew we were in the party, but I introduced this legislation. I told all of my Democratic and Republican friends up there that this was the governor's bill. None of the Democrats believed me, and even fewer of the Republicans believed me. But they made that call on their own, and the governor said and told them that bill passed the state Senate without a single no vote. It crossed over into the House and passed without a single no vote as well. And I tell you this story because it's kind of significant. When we created the M.L. King Advisory Council in 2011, the next thing I knew is that I got named as its chairman, which the title I hold today in being the chair emeritus of the Advisory Council, the M.L. King Advisory Council for the great state of Georgia. The other reason why that's really, really important is because during Governor Deal's time, we had some other projects that we worked on together. And those projects have really, really meant a lot to me. And allow me just to share with you what a couple of those projects are. Back in a few years after we had created this advisory council and we really got up and going really, really well, and during Governor Deal's second term, he felt emboldened. The governor came to me and said, Senator, I was the chair of the Emanuel King Advisory Council, no longer the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, but he said, I have an idea. And that idea was that he wanted to erect a statue of Dr. King on the campus of the state capitol. Some may say, well, they didn't have one already, and the answer is no, we did not. But that was back in 20, and here's the thing that Governor Deal wanted to do. He wanted permission from those of us African Americans in the legislature, my Legislative Black Caucus members, to sign off on a request from the governor to move the statue honoring the 33 African Americans that were expelled because of color. Why do we need to move it? Because he wanted Emanuel King's statue to go right there where this former plaque stood, this former monument. And I would tell you, every single member in the Legislative Black Caucus signed off on that request, and I submitted it to Governor Deal. We then moved forward, and not only did we sign off on it, he threw a little carrot out there to us. He said, tell your members, Senator Jones, that if they support this idea, then we will erect a plaque next to the monument for those expelled because of color with all of their names on it. And I would tell you at the top of that list says Senator Emanuel Jones, Chairman. And I wish I could bring that plaque in here with you, because there's somebody in here that probably don't understand what I'm talking about. But if I leave you, I'll come back and get you later. But when Governor Deal erected the statue and we had the unveiling of this statue on August 28th, 2017, it was one of those Kairos moments for me where I had an opportunity to work with, in the past, as chair of the Advisory Council, all of the civil rights legends in the state of Georgia. Dr. Joseph Lowry had given me permission to use his name. Ambassador Young had given me permission to use his name. And our advisory council, John Lewis, had given us permission to use his name. Rita Samuels, who gave me the original idea to create this advisory council, had given me her permission to use her name as one of the awards that we give away even to this day annually as part of our Emanuel King Advisory Council. And it was through that shared work that I remember this unveiling on the 28th of August in 2017, where we all stood around as this new statue of Dr. King was unveiled. And those of you that have visited the Capitol, everybody's hand in here should go up, I know. But if you haven't, don't tell me you haven't. But if you go by and see the Emanuel King statue, you would see that Dr. statue is pointing toward the King Center. That's why we had to move the center. Governor Deal wanted Dr. King to be looking at the King Center. And I remember Bernice King and others and her brothers, all of the King family was there during that moment of the unveiling. But I would also tell you that during the end of the unveiling, after we had unveiled the main statue, Governor Deal surprised three of us. And he surprised three of us by, and I happened to be one of those three, by the way, who was awarded one of the original sculptures of the original statue that sits today on the grounds of the Capitol. And there's probably some in here that don't believe that. They're like, Senator, you're going too far. No, I'm not, because I actually brought it with me, by the way. And I would tell you that that's probably the most valuable item that I have in my home. Now that you understand something about who I am, and Cynthia made me promise that I would tell you, by the way, I am just reminded of some of the words of Dr. King when he said, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it always bends towards justice. And I thought about this, Ms. Bridges, where are you? There you are. I thought about this in one of the words and some of the quotes that I want to use for this occasion tonight. And then it occurred to me, think about the moment that we are living in. And I would tell you today, as I wake up as a Democratic legislator, not offended if any of you Republicans, I'm okay with that. But I would tell you that as a Democratic legislator, and given what's going on in the world today and the changes that have been made at Pennsylvania Avenue, I believe that this moral arc is bending toward fascism and authoritarianism. But you know, I had to be here today, not only to follow, but to trace the footsteps of a king. This moment in America's history demands that we all be accountable if America continues to be that shining light, that beacon of hope. And we certainly hope that we do not fall down a slippery slope with our freedoms being eroded away every single day. You know, I believe that if Dr. King had a dream today, it would be an impossible dream. As Dr. King's daughter, Bernice King, would often share with me, she would tell me, Senator Jones, it's all about the urgency of today. The policies of this nation are being shaped by a president that only seeks self-aggrandizement. And that's a long word to say, but I think I got it right the first time. While war is raging in the Middle East and Europe is on the verge of other wars, the potential, I believe, on this global stage for World War III is imminent. One of my favorite sayings from Dr. King, he said, we have guided missiles and misguided men. I'm not calling any names up here, but y'all know who I'm talking about. You know, our president is fond of celebrating foreign leaders who attacked a country that's aligned with our values and supported by other NATO countries, of which the United States was one before he got into office. See, you did invite a politician, Ms. Bridges. I have to warn you about that. The Middle East has long been a powder keg, but now I'm afraid that this fuse has been lit. But let me tell you here, Pike County ML King Committee, the most important war in the world is right here in America. There's a war against power and principalities, which generally refers to spiritual battle, but I'm not up here talking about spiritual battles. However, if Dr. King were here, I think he would agree with me that America's war is a war between power, the elites, and the truth. Somebody should ask me, what do you mean by that? I'm glad you did. Sister Beckham over there, I'm going to tell you. See, the power structure in this country is currently domiciled at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, is bent on waging war against the truth and any of its perceived enemies. I was always told that if you don't stand for something, y'all know what I'm talking about, then you're going to fall for anything. Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes issued a chilling report that America is under attack from within. He went on to say that the rule of law is under attack, that journalism is under attack, that preeminent universities are under attack, that freedom of speech is under attack, DEI is under attack, the immigrant community is under attack, unions, the bedrock of the middle class, are under attack, veterans and the sacrifices they've made to this country are under attack, our courts are under attack, our consciousness as a nation is under attack simply because power can distort reality. And I hope somebody remembers that. Power can rewrite history and make heroes into criminals and criminals into heroes. Y'all know where I'm going with this. Power can distort reality and make the truth into lies and lies into the truth. If I lose you, just let me know. I'll come back later and explain it to you. The only absolute about power is that it absolutely, y'all know what I'm talking about, it absolutely, say it with me, corrupts. The only absolute about power is that it corrupts. Your right to choose who you marry and who you sleep with is under attack. A woman's control of her own body is under attack. Neighbors of a different race, ethnicity, religion are all under attack. Our personal liberties are under attack. Dr. King, in his 1963 letter from the Birmingham jail, wrote, "Injustice anywhere." Y'all should know this quote. I shouldn't have to finish it. "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." You see, this phrase to me emphasizes the idea of our shared interconnectedness and our shared responsibility among all people. What Dr. King was trying to say was essentially an act of injustice on any one person or group ultimately endangers the well-being of the entire society and its foundation of justice. Dr. King went on to say in that same letter that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied to the single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one indirectly affects us all. Somebody in here may be a little bit lost right now, so let me kind of break it down to you a little bit more. See, our government is coming for our brown, and I don't take any pleasure in saying this, by the way, for our brown immigrant population now. We, as people of color, must recognize that it was no different than our government coming for our black population with alcohol, drugs, unemployment, Jim and Jane Crow, whatever you want to call it. What about separate and unequal? It's not much different then as it is today. That's right. You see, I could go on and on with this list. But Pike County MLK Committee, I say simply that we must wake America the hell up. Amen. Some of us went to sleep back during the November's election and woke up with this cloud hanging over all of our heads. And somebody should ask me, well, what do we need to do, Senator Jones? There you go. Somebody didn't say it loud enough. What do we need to do? Vote. We need to vote. And now I'm telling you, and I'm talking to our particularly young black men in here because somewhere along the way, I think they've forgotten how to vote. And I see some up here early at this stage, really close to me. And I have a conversation with y'all a little bit later. It begins with voting. It ends with voting. But I'll also say to our black women here today, thank you. You all got it a long time ago. It's gotten so bad in our community that black women have decided to pick up the mantle of democracy and carry it forward. And I say to the men in here, we need to catch up. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about in this chamber that I serve in. Out of the 56 legislators, state senators in the state of Georgia, out of those 56, 22 of us are Democrats. How many do you think out of those 22 state senators, Democratic state senators, are men? How many of those 22? I hear 8, I hear 7. Somebody's been up there, they know the answer, but 8 is the correct answer. So let me say that again. Out of the 22 Democratic legislators serving in the Senate in the state of Georgia, only 8 of us are men. And 3 of us, including myself, are leaving at the end of next year. On the other side of the aisle, there's 34 Republicans. How many out of that 34 Republicans do you think are men? 30. I hear 30. Going once? How many? 33. You must know something about the General Assembly. Out of the 34 Republican legislators, 33 of them are men. There's only one female Republican legislator up at the General Assembly. And I say to you, Pike County, that we must address this imbalance in our party. You know, Stacey Abrams was correct 7 years ago when she said, if black men had voted, I would be governor today. That's right. That's right. Pike County, I believe that if Dr. King was able to have a dream today in the year 2025, that it would be an impossible dream. But we as Kingian warriors must never, ever stop dreaming, even if the road ahead of us gets rough, even if there's a few bumps in the road, even if we head in the wrong direction, we can always self-correct. But we must never, ever stop dreaming. And I say to you all tonight, you must dream impossible dreams. Power may be against you. Those out there that seek to undermine the work that we've done in the past may be against you. It doesn't matter what comes up against you. And I said we cannot stop dreaming, even if your dream is an impossible dream. I leave you tonight, Pike County, that whenever I get weary, whenever I need a shoulder to lean on, whenever I need something or somebody to lift me up, whenever I need a word, either coming from someone ministerial or even someone close to me, I start thinking about this impossible dream, this dream that Dr. King laid down for all of us. But I also remember a song that was penned to paper by Joe Darian, and it's titled The Impossible Dream. And let me just tell you a few stanzas of what he wrote on paper, because it always inspires me regardless of what I'm dealing with or regardless of whatever situation, either political or personal. I've always found hope. Joe Darian, and some of you may know this song, The Impossible Dream. He went on to say, to dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to go, to run where the brave dare not go, to fight the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. He went on to say, this is my quest, to follow that star. Pike County, I say to you today, follow that North Star. God bless you. Thank you for having me here today.